Recording in progress.
Welcome in to the October 4th episode of Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. I'm your host, Real_G Warner, on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. And we will be going through the English Premier League, La Liga in Spain, Serie in Italy, the Bundesliga in Germany, and Ligue 1 in France. We'll be covering each of the remaining games before we head into the international break starting Monday. We've got two loaded cards filled with no Monday matches. So we got a ton of stuff coming out Saturday and Sunday after a pretty quick Friday, evening of football. You can follow me on Twitter at @the_Real_G Warner, as I already mentioned. And please check out Betting the Pitch on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, of course. But under the Betting the Pitch name at those two sites, Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, and then on YouTube at @the_Real_G Warner. Also, I'll be cutting a 1-minute ultimate best bet video end of show with my favorite bets from each of the leagues covered, and then pick an ultimate best bet, my favorite from all top five European soccer leagues. And then you can grade my performance based on that. One of the last 4 episodes that I've caught up on the games. I haven't finished all of Champions League and Europa League yet this week, but that will be done in the wee hours or at some point over the next day or so. As always, we'll start where the money is, and that is in the English Premier League. So we'll start with the early Saturday morning match here in the United States. I'll start with Crystal Palace, a 1-goal underdog to Liverpool at home. Over-under is 3, with a little bit more juice to the over here and a lot of juice on Liverpool at the moment. I expect this number probably will climb to 1.25 before kickoff at 6:30 a.m. Central Time here in Dallas, Texas, 7:30 Eastern Time on that seaboard across the United States. But this is kind of an interesting number considering how we've seen this number trend down from as high as plus 106 at BetOnline. All lines quoted courtesy of BetOnline, SportsBetting.ag. If you're not a member there, go make a first-time deposit. Follow the links in the podcast descriptions and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube, and you get some free money from both SportsBetting.ag and BetOnline. But anyway, Crystal Palace 1-goal underdog. It seems like they've actually been catching some dollars this evening, so that's a good sign, or I guess in the wee hours in the UK. I think Palace have looked like one of the best home teams in football over the years, but they've gotten off to a pretty slow start, unfortunately, in Premier League play. They've got a lot of talent. They had a lot of rumors early in the year. They did sell Michael Olise to Bayern München, but at this point, I think Liverpool, coming off Champions League midweek, not as bad of a travel because they played at home against Bologna, but this is a different match in a different place, going to a really tough place to play at Crystal Palace, and an early start coming off Champions League midweek, which we in the past, not so distant past, we've heard Jurgen Klopp complaining about that every chance he could. I think we see a good performance from Crystal Palace, and with a full goal of insurance, it's hard for me to avoid. I'll also put the under on my list as well, as I think this is a great spot to catch a Liverpool side, which still to me seems like one of those that's never going to score as much as the market thinks it will. Dominant efforts against Bournemouth, which you could certainly argue if they had a deserved 3-0 lead, but held on and ended up going under because the total was so large. I feel like the numbers are starting to come in a little bit in the Premier League because they were very high for, I think, reflecting the end of last season. But I think we see a low-scoring match here, and I like Crystal Palace at home. Move to the big slate of 10 a.m. Eastern Time windows. Arsenal hosts Southampton. Currently, Arsenal a 2.25 goal favorite. Juices split both ways on that one. Over/under is 3.5. Juice very heavily to under. Look like it might fall down to 3.25. We'll see if that ends up happening. But Arsenal with a great victory at home against Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League, took a 2-0 lead, and not the most beautiful of fashions. Had a set piece that was never touched and went right in the goal, or not right in, took I think a bounce or two, and then held on and really did a great job of keeping PSG quiet. Now Southampton are not going to have many choices or options in this matchup. They need to change their style, which they haven't. I think their manager will probably be first to be fired in Southampton or in the Premier League, because Southampton just have no real options. They seem to still want to play out of the back with incapable, inept center backs who are probably championship level that have been playing in the Premier League for a long time. Looking at you, Jan Bednarek, the poll. Unfortunately, this is and I'm still interested in under here. I don't really want to back Southampton, which does bring up a lot of concern for me, because Southampton ultimately are a bad team, newly promoted, that got up through the promotion playoffs and were an underdog even all the way into the final at Wembley. Now they're a gigantic underdog, and it's a team who's been playing really, really well. It's hard for me to want to back Southampton, and you sort of are if you play under 3.5 here. But I think Arsenal have shown they are coming off 2 goals conceded at home against Leicester City. They are, I think, a much better defense than I think the most predictable clean sheet in Premier League are the Arsenal Gunners. The big question is, can they get 4 goals themselves? They certainly can, but coming off a really big match with PSG, they don't really rotate, so it's a good chance they're a little bit off their usual performance this Saturday and a quick turnaround. So I'll put Southampton under 3.5 on my list. I just don't want much to do with the side, and those are some of the plays I'm trying to remove. Are backing, especially if you back an under, you're essentially backing a road team's defense, and this one, a 2.25 goal underdog, is gigantic. Moving next to Leicester City hosting Bournemouth. Currently Leicester a 1/4 goal underdog at home. All the juice on Bournemouth on the road. Over under is 2.75. Juice pretty heavily to over here. Bournemouth have been a really great under and underdog combination, not so much as a favorite. And it's a weird situation to see Bournemouth favored on the road in the Premier League, because they're not one of the biggest budgets, but they have one of the best managers. And I hope this isn't the end of the Bournemouth value, because I feel like they are one of those dark horses that can compete for a Europa League, Europa Conference League type of spot. I think Leicester have shown that they are capable, but are ultimately a newly promoted as well. I think for that reason, though, I think Bournemouth being valued about as high as they have been in years, that makes me interested in the home underdog. And I think mostly in under 2.75 as well, as a way to potentially back Leicester, keeping the Bournemouth offense a little bit quieter, but also this being a tight game and Leicester not really having much of an offense itself or themselves. Moving next to West Ham United hosting Ipswich Town. Currently, West Ham United a 3/4 goal favorite. All the juice on Ipswich on the road. Over under is 2.75. Juice to split both ways. I'm going to keep playing West Ham United unders, I think, and maybe even against them as a favorite as much as I possibly can. I think Ipswich has looked better than West Ham so far this season. Yes, they're newly promoted, and they're still learning their ways. And honestly, I just feel like we've seen more from Ipswich in a scoring capacity than we've seen from West Ham. And I don't know that the Julian Lopetegui fit is going to stick around for too long. I don't think the fit's very good. West Ham were really mad their crowd was, even despite getting good performances under David Moyes. They didn't like his style of play, despite the success he was bringing. And honestly, Julian Lopetegui is the same or even an uglier type of football manager. So it worked really well for him at Sevilla years ago, but that is years ago now. And things went really kind of sideways and worse pear-shaped when he was there. Ipswich getting 3/4 of a goal and under 2.75 are my biggest interest in that one. We'll move next to Manchester City hosting Fulham. Currently, Man City a 1.75 goal favorite with more juice. Over under is 3.25. Juice pretty heavily, almost all the way to under. Fulham, I thought have looked really good so far this season. They've shown a little bit more attacking than I think anyone would have expected. Pretty much they've been staying in the league after being promoted a couple seasons back and have been pretty safe about it and playing pretty well until they're on the beach each season with nothing else left to play for, no Europe and no relegation threat. They're still going to be pushing for that same sort of thing. Got a big win on the road last weekend at Nottingham Forest. I just kept the only clean sheet, I think, in the league. And so that's a good sign. Manchester City, of course, are terrifying, but it feels like they're a very different team this season. No Kevin De Bruyne around. Rodri, who just tore his ACL, forced Manchester City. They're not really a defensive playing team, but to be a little bit safer with their play. I'm not saying that they're going conservative or anything like that, but Fulham getting a goal in 3/4 is gigantic. I'll be waiting around to see if this hits a full 2. And I lean to under 3.25 as well as a way to back Fulham's defense away from home and Manchester City just not really firing. Erling Haaland's a great goal scorer, but he needs a lot of service and is not going to create things himself against a really deep-sitting defense. Move next to Brentford hosting Wolves. Currently, Brentford a 1/4 goal favorite with all the juice over unders 2.75. Juice very heavily to under. Wolves was a great showing against Liverpool last week. Still are bottom of the table because they were not able to get a result at home, but covered the side and the spread. Thank you to Wolves for that. Great close to Saturday evening, especially in the Premier League. Brentford on their side, they scored, I think, a first-minute goal in 3 straight matches, but didn't score again last weekend. Under with hit as easily as a first-minute goal could hit. I think on the road at West Ham it was. Now they get Wolverhampton coming in. Don't really see a lot of goal scoring options, and it makes the 1/4 of a goal on Wolves feel a little bit cheap. But I think it's the English Premier League market backing Wolves or maybe fading Brentford. It seems like a early goal is all Brentford's got at this point. They're usually not a big offense. They're not a big expenditures type of club. Wolves have been struggling, but I still really trust what they've done over the past seasons. They're a great defense, and I expect them to be very tough out for Brentford, even at home in front of what usually is a pretty good and productive crowd and home environment. So give me Wolves getting a quarter of a goal, though I think I like under 2 3/4 better than that one. Last but not least, on Saturday, we have Everton hosting Newcastle. Currently, Everton a quarter goal underdog at home. Finally, not giving up a 2-goal lead with a win last weekend. Total here is 2 3/4, just all the way to over. Newcastle with a really good result, getting a home draw with Manchester City last weekend, but they are a very different team away from home, and this is going to be a tough crowd for them to go into. Everton, don't let the Tigers in Major League Baseball get hot. That hasn't worked for the rest of Major League Baseball. Sorry, Astros. Sorry, Twins, Mariners, all those sort of things that are now eliminated. Same sort of story for Everton. I think once the crowd believes, they start to look a lot better at home. So give me that quarter of a goal, and I like under 2 3/4, hoping I get 3 before kickoff on Saturday evening. We got 3 matches Sunday. Move to Chelsea hosting Nottingham Forest. Currently Chelsea a 1 1/4 goal favorite, although juice on Nottingham Forest on the road. Over under is 3, just a little bit more to over. Now Chelsea had Conference League midweek. We'll see how that distracts them this season, but they looked awesome. Cole Palmer, church boy haircut. He got 4 goals in the first half in last week's match. I would imagine we'll see an overreaction to that. And Nottingham Forest have proven to be a good defense, especially going on the road and keeping a clean sheet in a victory at Liverpool at Anfield. The big question is, can they keep this Chelsea team quiet? That's going to be hard. But lean to Nottingham Forest getting that goal in a quarter and also to under 3. Next, we go to Aston Villa hosting Manchester United. Currently, Villa a quarter goal favorite with juice split both ways. Over under is 3, juiced all the way to over. And I just don't see that with Manchester United. I don't trust them to score goals. Aston Villa are great defensively, especially at home. Though Aston Villa coming off a big matchup with Bayern Munchen in the Champions League midweek. That's tough. Manchester United, the same quarter goal underdog, close on the road at Porto in Portugal on Thursday. Could see some weary teams here. It's probably not great for defense, but I think it's worse for offense. So I'll go Manchester United under 3 in that matchup. Last but not least, we have Brighton hosting Tottenham. Currently, Brighton a quarter goal underdog at home with more juice. Over unders 3.5, juice almost all the way to under here. Pretty big total, but Tottenham's involved, so not so much. And Brighton, after shipping 4 goals to one left boot of Cole Palmer last weekend, is pretty dangerous. I don't know that I could bet under in this matchup, even though it crossed the very key number of 3 for me. So I think I'll let that one go, though I'm still pretty interested in fading both these teams. I don't think Brighton are the goal scorers that they have been in past seasons, but I guess we'll see what happens with that one. For my best bet in the English Premier League on this Saturday, October 5th. Now we're in the wee hours, about to hit 1 a.m. local time. I guess I'll sleep eventually. I'll go Everton as a home underdog. I'll take their quarter of a goal underdog right on this Saturday card. Moving now to Spain and La Liga. We'll start with Espanyol hosting Mallorca, early morning, 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Time in the United States. Espanyol, a quarter of a goal underdog with all the juice right now at home. Over under is 2, juiced all the way to under. So both these teams and really any Mallorca match, I'm not expecting a lot of goals. I would not play under 1 3/4 as 2 is the lowest. I generally will I don't think I can go anything below 2. 2 is tiny as it is. But La Liga had gotten off to a big scoring start, and we're playing a ton of matches. I think up until this international break, and then the season will spread out a little bit more. I guess taking all that money from Saudi Arabia to host the Super Copa. I guess that's what happens. But I'm interested in the home underdog in Espanyol. I also like under 2. I feel like this number won't be around for long. It's pretty juiced at the moment. But I gotta say, two offenses I don't see much from. Espanyol, a really tough loss on the road at Real Betis last weekend. Deserved a lot better, but maybe there's value moving forward. And I guess +1 pushed, but maybe some more value going against Real Betis. Moving next to Getafe hosting Osasuna. Currently Getafe a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice. Over under 1 3/4. As I just said, lower than the number I will go, or the lowest I will go. Total is more juice to the over, but not significantly at this point. Don't think we'll get 2 on this one. So only real interest for me is Osasuna getting a quarter of a goal, but they've been pretty weak away from home. It's a it's been going back seasons, and under a new manager who I don't like, might be an easier one for me to skip, but juice is certainly pointing this might go to a half of a goal before kickoff. Moving next to Las Palmas, hosting Celta de Vigo. Currently, Las Palmas a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice, or almost all the juice. Over under is 2.75 with more juice the over. Now, Celta have been scoring a lot of goals this year. I don't really trust it, but Las Palmas have been horrible. They can't win, and that's a really big deal. And I think it's seeped its way into post-game interviews from some of their players. Total here at 2.75 is also too high based on Celta Vigo's ability to concede and score goals a lot this season, but it's different away from home. I think we've seen their scoring normalize a little bit. Saw an under with them last weekend, despite a late goal from Iago Aspas. I think under 2.75 is my biggest interest, but I also like the home underdog, though it's really tough to see a manager break a string that's been going on ever since even before he got there. Pimienta even struggled after a great start to last season, but based on how Las Palmas played the second half of last year, I think after Christmas, they would have been relegated by far. Moving next, I guess in that same window, Real Valladolid, they are newly promoted. They host Rayo Vallecano. Currently, Valladolid, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over under is 2 in this one, and that's a key number for me. Rayo are an incredible defensive side, play the same way they did under a previous manager, Andoni Iraola, who moved to Bournemouth. And their current apprentice is playing the same way, getting a lot of results, playing low-scoring matches, great for under, and honestly good for them as an underdog. Unfortunately, Rayo are a road favorite here. So give me Valladolid getting that quarter of a goal, and I'm more interested in under 2. For the nightcap on Saturday, Real Madrid hosts Villarreal. Currently, Real Madrid a 1.75 goal favorite with all the juice. Over under 3.75, juice all the way to under. Gigantic price for, I imagine Kylian Mbappe is returning for this matchup, but we saw Real Madrid basically play a nothing game, took a lead somehow at Atletico Madrid last weekend and a Champions League midweek. I'm not really a believer in what I've seen from Real Madrid. They are great at scoring second half goals, but Villarreal can score a lot. The big question is how does Villarreal, who've been scoring a ton, protect their defense? And that's the biggest question here. And I think that's why the spread's so big and the total's so big. It's probably one of those where the total's big enough that I'm still interested, but I think the biggest interest for me in this one is Villarreal getting that 1.75 goals. So it looks like we're headed pretty quickly to get a 2 before kickoff in the late window on Saturday evening here in the United States, Saturday evening in Spain, and Saturday late afternoon, or I guess middle of afternoon here in the United States time zones. They're amazing. Moving to Sunday of Girona hosting Athletic Club. Currently, Girona a quarter goal favorite with all the juice on Athletic Club on the road. Over unders 2.5, juice all the way to under. I think my biggest interest here is to try to get Athletic Club make sure they're still a quarter goal underdog. Though coming off Europa League midweek, which is unfortunately on Thursdays compared to Girona playing Wednesday. That does matter for legs, but Girona have fallen apart completely. After a great unexpected season last year, they lost, I think, 5 starters, and they have not been playing well, making big mistakes all over Champions League this past week or midweek. And I think Athletic Club are a better side anyway. So give me that quarter of a goal, and I lean to under 2.5 because I just want to bet against Girona and their offense as much as I possibly can while they're still balancing Champions League until their exit. Moving next to Alaves, hosting Barcelona. Currently, Alaves a 1-goal underdog with more juice on Barcelona. Over under is 3, just pretty heavily to under here. Alaves has been a great home team. They've sticking out of my mind is a really close match. They conceded a late winner to Real Madrid, 1-0 last year. I think we see that same sort of effort, though the Alaves defense has not been as great. They came back from the dead, 2 late goals to somehow put Real Madrid under big trouble after falling behind 3-0. I think Barcelona showed that they played their backups and got smoked on the road at Osasuna. We probably see a much better lineup right before the international break, of course. But Alaves getting a full goal of insurances of interest, and I do like under 3 in that matchup as well, though Barcelona unders are scary. Moving next to Sevilla hosting Real Betis, El Gran Derby, the biggest derby arguably in all of Spain. I guess El Clasico probably will still win, but I'll take this one. Sevilla pick 'em right now with all the juice. Over unders 2.75. Excuse me, 2 and a single quarter, 2.25, and the juice is more to the over here. Sevilla can't really score goals. Real Betis have been. I've been betting against them this entire season, and I feel like I've deserved better results than I've gotten. And so I'm not really looking to get off the bandwagon. I think if Real Betis climb to a quarter goal underdog, though, I will trust their anemic offense as an underdog more than I'll trust the anemic Sevilla offense, even though it will be at home. This is a huge derby. There will be a huge crowd situation here. Hopefully there won't be any I guess missiles, as Ian Dark likes to call them, thrown from the crowd that ends up postponing the game a day. But I'm still very interested in this being a low-scoring match, and we'll see if Real Betis end up closing a quarter goal underdog. And looks like last but not least on this list, Real Sociedad hosts Atletico Madrid. Currently, Sociedad a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over under is 2, juice all the way to over. Atleti, I mean, they did nothing. And of course, everyone on ESPN here in the United States is going nuts about Diego Simeone. But I mean, we've all heard that broken record before. It's still broken. It's still being played. I think my biggest interest here is under 2. But I got to say, I'm still interested in Real Sociedad just because Atleti have not shown it much away from home in a very long time. At this point, though, I don't know that there's enough in it for me to want to play the Real Sociedad side because I just don't trust their offense. But I think along those lines, I think finding a third goal is going to be very, very difficult in this matchup. So under 2, and looks like we might get under 2.25. I'll certainly be waiting and looking around for that. For my best bet from La Liga to eventually go into the ultimate best bet end of show, stick around for that. I'm sure you all are. I'm going to go with that Villarreal getting a goal in 3 quarters from Real Madrid. It probably hits 2 before kickoff, but for now, that's where I want to be. We'll move now to Italian Serie A. We'll start with Udinese hosting Lecce. Currently, Udinese a quarter goal favorite at home. Almost all the juice in Lecce on the road. Over under is 2.25. Juice pretty heavily to under here. I don't trust Lecce's offense, and Udinese somehow were top of the Serie A table just a couple weeks ago. That will crash and burn sooner rather than later if it hasn't already. I think the biggest interest for me here is under 2.25, just betting against 2 offenses, though Udinese have been scoring a lot more than I've expected so far this season. Move next to Atalanta hosting Genoa, coming off a Champions League match on the road at I guess in Gelsenkirchen, where Schalke 04 play, but against Shakhtar Donetsk. Now Atalanta return home. They're a 1-goal favorite to Genoa. All the juice on Atalanta right now. Over under is 2.75, just really heavily to under. I feel like Genoa are just not in a position I want to back them at all right now. They had a lot of expectations coming into the season, but have not lived up to them. I mean, they sold a bunch of talent, their best goal scorers, and really haven't been able to find a way to put the ball in the net. Their defense kind of remained, but it kind of showed they're an offensive team. I don't really know what to do this one, probably other than, I guess, betting against Genoa's offense in a way to look at under 2.75 here. Big total for Genoa, and would love to see this hit 3. It doesn't look like the juice is going to point it there. But I got to say, I don't really know what to do with Genoa at this point. The nightcap Saturday, Inter Milan hosting Torino. Currently, Inter a 1.5 goal favorite. More juice on Torino. Over under is 2.75. Juice pretty heavily to over. Inter are not a team I really want to bet against at this point. I don't really want much to do with Torino. They've changed managers and don't look very good so far. And the total is not something I really want to play against Inter because they can score at will in this league. Moving to Sunday, Juventus hosting Cagliari. Currently, Juventus a 1.25 goal favorite with almost all the juice. Over under is 2.5, juice more to the under. I feel like Juve have been a really great defensive team. No surprise for years, but Thiago Motta is making that even better. And Cagliari, until they went on the road to Parma last week or Monday, they weren't scoring any goals. So I don't really see that happening. The big question is, can they hang in and hang around and keep Juve off the scoreboard for as long as possible to make that 1-0 not turn into 3-0 and then make it go over 2.5. My biggest interest in that one, though, I'll go under 2.5 in Juventus at Cagliari. Moving next to Bologna hosting Parma. Currently, Bologna 0.5 goal favorite with almost all the juice. Over under 2.5, juice all the way to over. Parma just haven't shown any sort of defense or interest in changing their strategy. It's worked pretty well for them so far. They've been scoring goals, but those seem pretty fleeting. I don't know really what to do with this one. Besides, I guess I lean under 2.5, but that's really hard to do with Parma and away from home. It's really just based on Bologna not being the offense they were, really the team they were last season, and playing Champions League on the road at Anfield midweek. Moving next to Lazio hosting Empoli. Currently, Lazio a 1-goal favorite. All the juice on Empoli on the road. Over under is 2.5, and this is also juiced all the way to under. Empoli were a big winner for me last weekend with a home underdog covering and an under because there are no goals scored. They've been awesome. Didn't have a lot of expectations for them coming into the year. They just loan new players every year, it seems, but it's gone very well. Lazio have been scoring goals, but I don't know that I trust them completely. So give me that +1 Milan, full goal of insurance, even away from home. And I like under 2.5 as they're correlated. Moving next to Monza hosting Roma. Currently Monza, half a goal underdog at home with more juice. Over-unders 2.25, juice more to the over. Roma coming off Europa League midweek. That's tough then to go into the Milan suburbs and play Monza, who will certainly be out for blood. At least the crowd will. But I think Roma are a lot better. I just don't know that I trust who they are just yet under a new manager after already sacking Daniele De Rossi. I think Monza unders are what to do with them because I just don't think they're the same team that tries to outscore everyone they play. And that might potentially take advantage of some weary Roma legs. And last but not least, we go to Fiorentina hosting Milan. Currently, Fiorentina, a quarter goal underdog at home with more of the juice on Milan. Over-under is 2.75, juice more to the over. Now, Milan went on the road, played a really tight match with Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League. Unfortunately, lost 1-0, especially as I'm wearing a Christian Pulisic Captain America kit. If you're watching live, I do put videos up if you want to see my droopy eyes, black circles, or whatever they are, as it's 1:05 Central Time on Saturday morning. But make sure you go look at Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and at _G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. With that said, Fiorentina are my interest here, getting a quarter of a goal at home. I also lean to under 2.75, just because Fiorentina haven't been scoring much. Which does worry me a little bit against an open Milan team that are going to try to outscore you. But I think it's going to be hard to do away from home and after playing a road game in the Champions League. So that's back-to-back away matches all in the same week right before an international break. With a Milan side that certainly struggles with motivation, and that's never really something that I'm ever concerned about. I think with Fiorentina, especially after their start to the season, I guess they did play Europa Conference League, one of the few big name teams in that division or in that league, and that's going to be tiring on a Fiorentina side. But I feel like they're a little bit more experienced, deep. I think they're deeper than most would think. So for my best bet from Italy on this October 4th edition of Betting the Pitch with the _G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube, I'm going to go with that Monza under 2.25 goals. I think that's just going to be a really tough spot for Roma. We'll move next to Ligue 1 in France. We've got one more league after this one, and that is the German Bundesliga. And I'll cut that ultimate best bet for a 1-minute reel on Instagram at the _G Warner, and the same on YouTube at the _G Warner. But we'll start on Saturday with Saint Etienne hosting Angers. Currently, Saint Etienne, a pick 'em right now with almost all the juice on Angers. Over-unders 2.5, just pretty heavily to over. Now, both of these clubs were newly promoted. Saint Etienne through the playoffs have been kind of up and down, but got a big late penalty to get a draw on the road at Nantes last weekend. That's a big deal for them, especially coming off an 8-0 waxing, or whatever you'd call that, by Nice. Not a lot of waxing on the Nice beaches, or the Cannes beaches I was just at a couple of weeks ago, I must say. Not a lot of bikini tops either. But I think my biggest interest here are the home underdog, though I'm still waiting to see Saint Etienne get a quarter of a goal. I don't know if we'll get that. So it looks like Pick'em might be the best case scenario. I don't know that I trust them to win. But I think my biggest interest here with current numbers, of course, that's what we do in Betting the Pitch. I'm going to go with under 2.5. Angers have been scoring a lot of goals, got a big win at home against Stade Brestois last weekend, who are killing the Champions League, or at least killing Austria so far, back-to-back Austrian teams and back-to-back wins in Champions League. But Angers, they have some defensive problems, which does put this total in a little bit of doubt. I think I might be more interested in the home underdog, but waiting to see what happens with this number. Move next to Lille hosting Toulouse. Lille coming off a Champions League match themselves. They're a 3/4 goal favorite at home. More juice than Toulouse right now. Over-unders 2.5, juice to the over. Lille just haven't been that impressive to me. I think Toulouse are on my list as a 3/4 goal underdog, and would love to see them be a full goal of insurance. I'm still kicking myself for not playing Strasbourg a couple weekends ago. But I think my biggest interest is there because we've seen goals in Lille matches despite Paulo Fonseca's departure, and Toulouse can score goals. And that's, I think, something that isn't really expected at a lot of like mediocre Liga sides. Moving next to the nightcap on Saturday, Stade Rennais. They host Monaco. Pick them right now with almost all the juice on Monaco, which probably will be overvalued for a while based on their Barcelona win, though that was at home. Total here is 3, just really heavily to under. These are over teams playing each other, so I'm not really sure I want too much to do with under. But I do like Monaco coming off midweek Champions League, and I'll give me that Stade Rennais pick them at home. Moving next to Lyon hosting Nantes on Sunday in the early window. Thankfully, it's not as early as it had been in Ligue 1. Lyon, a half a goal favorite right now with all the juice over unders, 2 3/4, just a little bit more to under. Now, Nantes have been exactly who I've wanted them to be all season, and I've actually been favored more than I expected, and it's probably kept me from backing them against the spread side as much as I'd like to. This is a great opportunity, though. Lyon coming off Europa League midweek, and Nantes are talented, great defensive manager, and they've been performing. So I think also motivated off a disappointing draw to Saint Etienne last week, thanks to that late penalty I already mentioned. So Nantes getting half of a goal, I like. I also like under 2 3/4 because Nantes will play a defensive match, and I think Lyon will be a little bit tired, though they've certainly beefed up their squad a lot now that they finally saw some success, especially funny considering they were bottom of Liga for a lot of last season. Stade de Reims and host Montpellier. Currently Reims a half a goal favorite with all the juice right now. Over unders 2 3/4. She's all the way to over. Makes sense. Reims, I mean, scored a ton of goals against Angers last week. They can score, and our team I want to back as an underdog, not so much as a favorite. Montpellier have had defensive problems for years. I'm wondering how long Michel Desarcarian will stay there, but he's there for now. Not really sure I want much to do with this matchup. Probably see it over 2 3/4. There we go, Joe Dollar. There's the one over for the show. At least it only took 4 leagues to get almost all the way done. Move next to Stade Brestois, hosting Le Havre. Currently Brest a half a goal favorite with almost all the juice over unders 2 1/4. Juice more to the over. Now Le Havre have been not as good defensively lately. It's been a problem for them. We're not as competitive as I thought they'd be. On Saturday last week, they get an extra day off while Brest played in Austria midweek. That's certainly a great spot for Le Havre, though it's really hard to trust their offense right now. So I think I'm interested in the half of a goal. We'll be expecting us to hit 3/4 before kickoff because Stade Brestois have been killing Champions League. They're playing like 2 of the worst teams in it. I think under 2 1/4 is my biggest interest in that one. Move to Strasbourg, hosting Lens. Currently, Strasbourg, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice over unders 2.5, juice more to the over. Now, Strasbourg were, I think, my best bet last week at pregame and for the Sunday card and played a great match against Marseille. And I'm very happy they did because I was still kicking myself for not playing them against Lille the week before. But now they're home again against a Lens side that have been way different away from home versus at home. I think I'm again very interested in that quarter of a goal underdog. Also lean to under 2.5 because Lens really made it based on their defense. They got a new manager, Will Still, is changing things, and he's a more offensive guy. But I haven't seen it from Lens' offense really all season. I trust their defense. So give me Strasbourg, the home underdog, and a little bit of interest to the under 2.5 there as well. Last but not least, we got Nice hosting PSG. Nice a 3/4 goal underdog at home with more juice than PSG on the road. Over under is 2 3/4. She's almost all the way to over. Nice have been a really good defensive side. They've been lacking offensively and should get a pretty good crowd for a home date with PSG. Now, PSG going on the road to Arsenal and losing, not great for, I think, Nice here and that type of emotional setup because PSG should be pretty motivated, but they know they're winning Liga. They might be focused on their travel plans for their national matches, and I think that's a great position to be Nice. I like the 3/4 of a goal. Would love this to get to 1. Might get there based on where the juice is heading. I doubt it, but I'm interested there, and I lean to under 2 3/4. So I think Nice is going to get the game they want, even though they're playing later or played later in Europa League, and then have a big battle with PSG in this last nightcap in France. Move to the last league. Before we get there, though, I got to give my ultimate best bet. Can't forget that. I'll go Stade Rennais, a pick'em right now at home to Monaco. For my best bets, we'll still stick around for the ultimate best bet. Got one more league to do, the German Bundesliga, and then we'll get through it, cut it out, and put a minute video up on Instagram at @the_Real_G Warner and YouTube at the same @the_Real_G Warner. We'll start with Union Berlin hosting Borussia Dortmund. Currently Union a quarter goal underdog right now. Looks like Pickham's long gone. It's going to be probably a half of a goal based on where the juice is going to go before kickoff. Total here is 2 3/4. Juice really heavily to under. This is a great chance to bet against Borussia Dortmund, who have really been not good in the German Bundesliga. Somehow miraculously got into the Champions League this year, despite finishing as runner-up because they finished 5th and the Champions League expanded. Union have been really good. Took a really late loss on a late, I guess. I'm not really sure how much better you can cover or mark a 6'5" guy in the box on a set piece in the 96th minute, but that was a brutal loss, unfortunately for Union and for me. But they did hit the under. So I'm still very interested in both Svensson, what he's done with Union. It seems like he's picking off his or Urs Fischer 2.0, and that was basically what was a cash cow for a long time. So give me the quarter of a goal, and I'll take under 2 3/4 in that one as well. Bayer Leverkusen then Holstein Kiel. Currently Leverkusen coming off a big important week where they drew at Munich, at Bayern München, and really went there to get a draw. Got a pretty fortunate goal, gave up one of the fortunate goals themselves, and then choked the game out and put them in a great position to beat Bayern at home and win the Meisterschale for the second straight season. Well, this is one of those trap games, home for Holstein Kiel, who've been horrible, can't defend. Makes 2 3/4 not interesting to me as an underdog, which is gigantic, and under 4, it's gigantic as well, but not probably a place I want to put my money or yours. Move next to Main VFL, VfL Bochum. They're hosting VfL Wolfsburg, a battle of VFLs. Bochum, a quarter goal underdog at home with almost all the juice. Over under is 3, juiced all the way to under. We might see this number fall. Wolfsburg got a lot of respect last week from the German Bundesliga betting market. I'm not sure it was fully deserved, but they were able to escape with a draw against Stuttgart. I think a lot aided by a really mistaken red card, honestly. I think Bochum are in a good position here, and I would love to be against Wolfsburg because under Ralf Hasenhüttl, they're very fucking fit, excuse my French, as he says, but I just don't really know that I trust that they're really great goal scorers. And I feel like the total's big at 3, and they're a road favorite against one of the best home teams that stays in the league based on home performances. Moving next to Werder Bremen hosting Sportclub Freiburg. Currently Bremen a pick'em. All the juice on Freiburg on the road now, and it seems like money keeps coming in on Freiburg. Over under is 2 3/4, juice all the way to over. If Marvin Friedel, the captain for Werder Bremen, is back in the center back position, I'll probably play both Werder Bremen at pick'em and also under 2 3/4. Freiburg with a really tough loss at home to St. Pauli, who hadn't been scoring any goals at all this season. The start they had was incredible, but I don't think it's sustainable. Give me Werder Bremen at pick'em, and I like under 2 3/4, which probably gets to 3 before kickoff, and that's an important key number in this sport. To the Topspiel, the nightcap in Germany, we have St. Pauli, speaking of, hosting Mainz 05. Currently, St. Pauli a quarter goal favorite right now. All the juice on Mainz on the road. Over under is 2.5, and it's juiced all the way to over. St. Pauli can't score goals. I mean, they did against Freiburg, but it seemed pretty fortunate. I think Mainz are going to be very intense, and they've been a great road underdog since like midway through last season. I think we see the same intensity, and I like them, especially in a Topspiel, which has some pretty minor teams in it, I got to say. So Mainz, give me the quarter of a goal, and also take under 2.5. We'll move next to Football Club Heidenheim hosting RB Leipzig. Heidenheim coming in off their own Conference League play. We'll see how that damages them and potentially puts them in a relegation bind. But Heidenheim currently a 3/4 goal underdog at home. Almost all the juice on Leipzig away from home. Over under is 3, just a little bit more to under. And Leipzig scored a ton of goals from Augsburg, but I just feel like the Augsburg's defense has been really bad. And maybe that high press that fooled everyone has been figured out over the offseason. I'm still betting that Leipzig, coming off Champions League, a host of Juventus, we'll see how they perform offensively. I'm not really in love with Heidenheim defensively, but they have the continuity despite losing some of their better players, really more in the attacking spots. So I'm interested in that 3/4 of the goal. Would love to get a full goal by Sunday and lean to under 3 there as well. 2 matches left to go. Eintracht Frankfurt hosts Bayern München, and probably the biggest match of the weekend in Deutschland. Currently Eintracht a 1 1/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over under is 3.5, and it's just a little bit more to under here. Bayern, they had Champions League midweek. They were disappointed at home against Bayer Leverkusen. Now they go on the road to Frankfurt, and Frankfurt's defense has not been great. They are going to try to outscore everyone. I don't think that's going to work against Bayern, so we'll see how that translates into any sort of defense here. I do think Frankfurt can score with Bayern, and I think Bayern have some issues, and I'm still waiting to see Vincent Kompany take a loss, and because I just don't know that I believe in him as a manager so far. He's not qualified for the position, but certainly was a great player and seems to do a lot better job of unity as opposed to Thomas Tuchel, who's horrible at that. I think Frankfurt getting a goal and a quarter is my biggest interest, though it's scary with a big total. Last but not least, before we get to the ultimate best bet, I'll go with VfB Stuttgart hosting TSG Hoffenheim, both coming off European play midweek. Stuttgart, a 1 3/4 goal favorite with almost all the juice on Hoffenheim away from home. Over under is 4, and it's used really heavily to under. Now, Hoffenheim had like the collapse of the week last week, up 3-0, took a red card, and then it was 3-2 before halftime and lost 3-4 at home. That's brutal. They're a gigantic underdog here, though. Stuttgart's coming off Champions League, Hoffenheim coming off Europa League. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's going to be tough. I think you're going to see some weary legs here. So seeing it 1 3/4, yes, that impacts defense, but that's gigantic. And the 4 is for total is gigantic as well, especially for a Stuttgart team that are going to try to possess the ball a lot and really squeeze Hoffenheim that way. A lot to be said, I guess, about that one. I don't know necessarily if I'm a believer in TSG Hoffenheim. I probably am not a believer, and they've been so bad away from home that makes this number even bigger than it probably should be. Man, there's a lot of ways to go with this one, but I think my biggest interest is actually in the under 4 in that matchup, though that's a really scary play to make with TSG Hoffenheim involved. So now we've made it to the ultimate best bet portion of the show, and thank you all for sticking around. Let's see if I messed anything up. Looks like we're still recording there. Let's see if I can pull this other thing up. We're super late night, but of course, if anyone had comments and they came up and they displayed, I would read them. I want to thank to the new YouTube subscribers. You know who you are out there. Appreciate it. Finally hit 150. Got a long way to go. I think we got to get to 1,000. So only need 850 more to go. Yikes. We'll get there. So maybe before I am able to hopefully I'm able to see by that point. But we've done 41 minutes, super late night with at the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. And I appreciate all the support. I really, really do. And we'll try to keep this going because the bets have been hot, ultimate best bet at least. And I'm going to try to keep that going after a fairly slow start to the season. But best bets have been great. So I've been able to pick on this podcast what the best bet was and win that way. Want to plug some podcasts that are out there on the Betting Pitch Podcast Network. We did NFL. That's been hot. That's out there with @_Schnicker. Still have college football coming out on pregame, plus the Major League Baseball podcast, the Moon of Manji at Big East Ben on college football. College basketball will be coming with Need for Seeds college basketball as well with that Big East Ben. So make sure you look out for that. Other than that, I guess, and if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. I guess this time I'm exhausted and running out of energy, and it's going to be an early wake up. So we'll see how that all goes, but it's time for the ultimate best bet. So let's make sure I got everything clicked, and then let's get into it. Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet for betting the pitch, the European Soccer Edition for this October 5th in the wee hours, I guess. Going to go through or did all the top 5 European soccer leagues, pick a best bet from each, and then I select one as my ultimate best bet. I've won the last 4 that I've watched and graded, still catching up on Champions League and Europa League from this week. But wanted to get into it. And if you're not following me across all the various platforms at the real_G Warner, especially on Patreon at the real_G Warner for all my plays, leans, picks, everything across all sports, baseball, pro football, both have been really good lately, and try to keep that streak alive. In the English Premier League, I like Everton getting a quarter of a goal. In La Liga in Spain, I like Villarreal, a 1 3/4 goal underdog, potentially getting 2 from Real Madrid. Serie A, I like Monza under 2 1/4. In Ligue 1, I like Stade Rennais, a pick 'em, and in the German Bundesliga, I like Mainz under 2.5. But for the ultimate best bet on this show, I'll take Everton getting a quarter of a goal at home. Don't let Everton get hot. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you after a very brief night's sleep, and then hope everyone will do really, really well all weekend, and that we can celebrate in Vegas at the Sphere for New Year's Eve.
Recording stopped.